Presentation of certificates of return to governors-elect. Nigeria's political space heats up again as legislators tussle for the leadership of the 10th Assembly. And President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurates Arase as PSC chairman as 5 CCB board members take oath. Well, it's a pleasure to have you join us on News Now on TV 360 Nigeria. I am Simisola Adigun. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has commenced the presentation of certificates of return to the governors-elect in the 26 states where winners have been declared following the conclusion of the March 18 governorship elections. Also, certificates are to be presented to the lawmakers-elect in the relevant state legislatures across the 36 states of the Federation. So far, the results of 26 of the 28 governorship elections have been announced, leaving the elections in Kebbi and Adamawa states, which were declared inconclusive. Supplementary elections are to be held in both states on Saturday, April 15. Accepting his certificate of return in Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde dedicated his election victory to the people of Oyo State. He promised to take the state from poverty to prosperity.
A time for us to redouble our efforts towards taking our people from poverty to prosperity. It is a day to reflect on the decision of the people of Oyo State. A day to acknowledge all the people that have contributed one way or the other towards making today a success. And the resident electoral commissioner and his team, I will want to appreciate you, because Oyo State election now is the reference point for election right across the country. My brothers that contested alongside myself, they've congratulated me, and I received a call personally from my brother Bayo Adelabu, and we got the notice from Senator Taslim Folarin. He congratulated us as well. That is the spirit in Oyo State.
Following the presidential and governorship elections, all eyes are now on the legislative arm of government as the battle for who emerges Senate President rages on. Among the contenders, jostling for the post of Senate President are Senator Orji Uzor Kalu of Abia State, Senator Barau Ibrahim Jibrin of Kano State, and the Vice Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Salihu Lukman. Lukman said a Christian from the South-South geopolitical zone is best placed as Senate President so as to balance the APC's Muslim-Muslim presidency. Earlier, Orji Kalu, who revealed that he had officially informed the President of his intention to run for the position, said if the position is zoned to the southeast by the leadership of the APC, it will bring stability to the country. Now, for more analysis on the Senate presidency tussle, legal expert Evans Ofeli joins me on the news. Many thanks for joining me, Evans. Now, we've seen several legislators announce their interest for the position of Senate President. And what are the modalities of how a Senate President emerges?
Well, the modalities through which a Senate President emerges is the support. If you look at the House now, the 10th Assembly is going to be a very interesting assembly, because now you have a pot shot of minorities. You have Labour Party clinching, NMPC clinching, and the other ones that have now parties. So, but by and large, APC have the highest number of parliamentarians. So it is this party structure, the same party structure supports, even though it's not compulsory that an APC senator-elect must vote for their own party, but a person. The truth is that most times they vote along that line. And the PDP and the APC have the highest number of candidates. Now, the parties have their own way of zoning that, looking at who the president is. If the president is a Christian and is from the Southwest, the vice president is a Muslim from the northeastern angle. In this case, the president and the vice are Muslims. So definitely, they are going to pick someone who possibly is a Christian and who is from an area other than the Southwest and the North. Okay.
All right, now, do you think religion or geopolitical zones should play key roles in the selection of a Senate president?
Yeah, it will because we are a multi-religious country, and we have different tribes, and there are agitations, back-end stories to all these issues. People talk about segregation very easy in Nigeria. The goal sometimes is not even about whether they are performing or not. It's just that the balance is what people yearn for. And for the party to create that stability, they will need to concoct that religious and regional leaning in getting. The House is going to be proclaimed in June, because the president will do a proclamation according to law, and then the House will constitute fully in June. That's after the swearing in. Okay, so the truth is that the person who will emerge will have to be possibly a Christian from the look of things, because you cannot have another Muslim again as a number 3 person in the country. We're talking about number 3 person now. The number 1 and 2 are Christians, are Muslims rather. Now, they may be considering, that is for equity and justice, they may be considering a Christian now, and that Christian must also come from an area that is not already represented at the president level and the vice president. So it must be from a region that have no person in those hem of affairs. That is the only way you can have balance. And they have to do it carefully, because sometimes this is where the political water gets turbulent or become turbulent if they are not able to manage it proper. They must manage it in such a way that it will reflect, at least, since there's a lot of grievances that came out from the process that brought them in, it should be a way to dazzle the tension a little bit, so that people who are from areas or region that have no one in that first 3 will have one person who will occupy that position. The political parties will decide, the House will decide, and that is how the 10th Assembly leadership will emerge. But they are going to vote. That is the...
All right, we'll continue to watch the events as they unfold. Legal expert Evans Ofeli, as always, thank you for your insights. Moving on, President Muhammadu Buhari has sworn in a former Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, as the new chairman of the Police Service Commission, PSC, including swearing in 5 board members of the Code of Conduct Bureau. The new PSC boss took the oath of office on Wednesday at the Council chamber before the commencement of the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, 2 months after the Senate confirmed him as chairman of the PSC. Speaking to State House correspondents after the swearing-in, Arase promised to prioritize the welfare of officers and men of the Nigeria Police Force.
I will be strong on training, retraining in different areas, especially alternative dispute resolutions. And the issue of discipline will be taken very seriously. I will not want a situation where civil transactions are criminalized. So any officer who, steps out of the line, there are going to be consequences. But at the same time, they are my colleagues and children. So I'm going to make sure that I sharpen their skills. I make them to start having self-confidence in themselves. With more training, the trust gap between members of the public and the police, will be bridged. Each of the parties should not learn to take everything. There must be negotiation, there must be empathy, there must be respect for each of our spaces. I will expect that the Commission will allow the Inspector General of Police to exercise its operational control over the Nigerian police force, and that the IG himself will respect, the constitutional powers, of the police force. So, there must just be mutual respect between both parties, and I don't foresee any crisis anymore. When you tackle issues that are likely to affect, the tendencies to be corrupt, you deal with the issues. Welfare. How are you taking care of their welfare? How are you ensuring that when they retire, they have a decent house to go to? How do you take care of their children? Can we organize scholarship scheme for their children? Can we ensure that when we deploy them, they have, the necessary equipments, to work with? There must be empathy. When you respect people who work for you, even your dogs, when they see you, they wag their tails.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has constituted a 7-member ad hoc committee to investigate the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing over 6 trillion naira unremitted ground rent accruable to the federal government. Composition of the panel was announced on the floor of the Senate during Wednesday's plenary. The Senate's decision to begin the probe follows a motion by Senator Abubakar Yusuf alleging that over 6 trillion naira ground rent due to the federal government is lying fallow in the hands of a few individuals in the country. The lawmaker emphasized the need to investigate the activities of the Presidential Investigation Committee on the sale of all federal government properties.
The Senate notes that Section 49 subsection 1 and 51 subsection 2 of the Land Use Act vested ownership rights of the federal government over its land in state territories. The right includes the power to control and regulate town planning and physical development in relation to such land, and by extension, prescribing and collection of any tax, fee, or rate. Disturbed that as far back as 1992, when some of these houses were built and allocated to the beneficiaries, none has evidence of payment of ground rent on their property. Aware that federal government have built and allocated over 2 million houses across the 36 states of the Federation, including Federal Capital Territory. The Senate further aware, with the current revenue challenges facing the country, there is need for government to look into other means of generating income other than relying on income generated by oil to defray expenses.
Senator Mohamed Adam Aleru, Chairman. Senator Mohamed San Musa, Member. Senator Sam Egu, Member. Senator Smart Ademi, Member. Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, Member. We need someone with low background. Senator Betty Apiafi to give the other touch. And then the sponsor of the motion, Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf. And we are giving you 1 month, 4 weeks. 4 weeks to report back to the Senate in plenary. 4 weeks.
Nigerians can now heave a sigh of relief as Naira notes, which had become scarce for months now, are gradually coming back into circulation. The cash crunch, which caused unprecedented hardship for many Nigerians, was as a result of the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which invalidated the legality of the old 500 and 1,000 Naira notes, respectively. Our correspondent Folashade Ogunride has more details in this report.
The Naira may slowly be finding its way back to the hands of Nigerians. But the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, is not ready to back down on its request from the federal government. Last week, the Labour organization threatened to picket all CBN offices nationwide owing to the continuous cash crunch that had caused untold hardship for many Nigerians. To avert a possible crisis, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, and the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, had met with the NLC leaders to resolve their differences and avert the impending nationwide strike.
We had to forward the letter to the CBN Governor and told him in our own letter that he should act promptly because they gave a deadline. The deadline expired last Friday, and we acted before that Friday. And we asked the CBN to also act before that Friday. So we did that before I left for Geneva. Call up the National Executive Council meeting, because the initial decision to give that ultimatum was given by this same council. Members of this council reside in the states and in the local government, so that they will come up today to review the situation. But as much as it is, the important thing that we have emphasized to them that we have apprehended this dispute.
Despite this assurance, the Nigeria Labour Congress says it will only give the federal government a window of 2 weeks to fully reverse the situation.
Because they have rushed to move money to commercial banks. And some of those commercial banks are getting empty again. Queues are returning in some of them. So it will be very naive for the Congress to hurriedly call up the action. We want to loosen up for another 2 weeks with committees set up at the national level and in all the states of the Federation to coordinate the level of compliance.
For experts, the implementation of the Naira redesign policy, rather than the initiative itself, is the root cause of the long queues at ATMs and the unprecedented difficulties that ensued.
The language and approach by the central bank has shown that some of its policies, that have been reeled out in the past 6 months were clearly because of the elections. And I do not see reasons why Nigerians, everyday Nigerians, SME, should be at the mercy of a very dysfunctional system as that, in context to driving policies for electoral bias than enabling for citizen development and prosperity.
After months of a drawn-out standoff between the CBN and state governors, the Supreme Court on the 3rd of March extended the validity of the old Naira notes to December 2023. The Apex Court also faulted the Naira redesign policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, declaring the Naira note swap implementation invalid and an affront to the 1999 Constitution. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News.
Well, we'll take a break here, but still to come, Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. We'll bring you details of the story and more after this break. Welcome back. Here's a recap of our top stories tonight. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced the presentation of certificates of return to the governors-elect in the 26 states where winners have been declared following the conclusion of the March 18 governorship elections. Also, certificates are to be presented to the lawmakers-elect in the relevant state legislatures across the 36 states of the Federation. So far, the results of 26 of the 28 governorship elections have been announced, leaving the elections in Kebbi and Adamawa states, which were declared inconclusive. Supplementary elections are to be held in both states on Saturday, April 15. We also told you that following the presidential and governorship elections, all eyes are now on the legislative arm of government as the battle for who emerges Senate President rages on. Among the contenders jostling for the post of Senate President are Senator Orji Uzokalo of Abia State, Senator Barao Ibrahim Jibrin of Kano State, and the Vice Chairman of the All Progressives Congress APC, Salihu Lukman. And in case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. The World Health Organization says it has tailored its COVID-19 vaccination recommendations for a new phase of the pandemic, suggesting that healthy children and adolescents may not necessarily need a shot, but older high-risk groups should get a booster between 6 to 12 months after their last vaccine. According to the UN agency, the aim was to focus efforts on vaccinating those facing the greatest threat of severe disease and death from COVID-19, considering the high-level population immunity worldwide due to widespread infection and vaccination. The agency added that healthy children and adolescents were low priority for COVID-19 vaccination and urged countries to consider factors like disease burden before recommending vaccination of this group. We'll take another break here and return with business updates. To stay with us. Welcome back. Mary Kanu joins us now with updates in business. Over to you now, Mary.
Thank you, Simisala. Welcome to Business News. The federal government has approved the sum of 24.2 billion naira for the provision of broadband internet connection in at least 20 airports, 43 schools and 6 marketplaces nationwide. Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, revealed this to State House correspondents after this week's Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari. Pantami said the broadband infrastructure would ensure connectivity in airports, ease e-learning in schools, and ease mobile transactions in markets as the economy goes cashless.
Memo number 1 is the award of our contract for the provision of broadband in some selected domestic and international airports. 20 of them are going to be covered in the first phase of the project. In each geopolitical zone, you have around 3 airports. Like in the southwest, you have 2 in Lagos, you have in Ondo. For southeast, you have Imo, you have Anambra, you have Enugu. For south-south, for example, you have like Port Harcourt, Akwa Ibom. For north central, you have like Abuja, Ilorin. For northwest, you have Kano, Sokoto, and Kebbi. For northeast, you have like Yola, Maiduguri, and Gombe. So all these airports are going to be covered, and federal government of Nigeria will provide broadband for free for passengers that are coming through the airports. The second memo is very similar to the first one, is the provision of broadband to some selected markets. Last year, the Federal Executive Council has approved the implementation of that by providing broadband to 20 markets in Nigeria, where you have a minimum of 3 markets per geopolitical zone. This one is to complement the earlier approval, where 6 markets are also going to benefit from this, in addition to 6 higher institutions of learning, 2 federal universities, 1 state university, and polytechnics. And this one, the price is 5.25 billion. So both memos, you will discover that they will provide broadband provision to these institutions at the price of approximately 24.20 billion naira. And the project is going to be implemented by the Nigerian Communications Commission.
We'll take a break and be back with Stock Market Review. bargain hunting by investors at the Nigerian Exchange Limited, particularly in favor of stocks like Oando PLC and Caverton, helped the market to record its first gain this week. The market appreciated from preceding days' lows by 0.90% at the close of trading session, that is 53,603 basis points, while the value of listed stocks increased to 29.2 trillion naira. Market breadth also closed positive as 22 equities recorded gains against 14 losers. In 3,906 deals, investors exchanged 236 million shares valued at 3.25 billion naira. In the same vein, our select global stocks are trading higher as investors eye the end of an eventful month and the first quarter of the year marked by resiliency in the face of a bank crisis and looming questions about the global economy. Now, for today, it's an all-round bullish trading day to the delight of investors. That's it on Stock Market Report. Simisola, back to you.
Thank you, Mary, for that update. And on the global scene, Peruvian prosecutors have announced they were investigating President Dina Boluarte and her ousted predecessor, Pedro Castillo, for alleged money laundering and illegal campaign financing during the 2021 presidential election. According to the Public Prosecutor's Office, the probe is an expansion of an investigation against the pair over allegations of illegal financing. The prosecutor in the case, Richard Rogers, made the decision after Castillo's former advisor, Henry Shimabukuro, declared he had evidence Boluarte was aware of alleged irregularities in the collection of campaign funds. Peru has been embroiled in a political crisis since Castillo was ousted and arrested on December 7, charged with rebellion for trying to dissolve Congress and rule by decree. And in sports, former Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson and ex-Arsenal boss Arsene Wenger on Wednesday became the first managers to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. The duo created a remarkable legacy with Manchester United and Arsenal respectively, winning a combined 16 Premier League titles as they established one of the most famed rivalries in the league's history. Ferguson, 81, is the most successful manager in Premier League history, guiding Manchester United to 13 titles, while Wenger won the competition 3 times with Arsenal, including going unbeaten in the 2003-2004 season. Well, that's our bulletin this evening. Many thanks for watching. I am Simisola Adigun. Bye for now.